In the participation activity for Unit 13, we're going to look at the fish locator app and adding some Firebase database, a non-SQL database to it. There have been some issues with this and the previous version of it, so I've got a new version out there, the Unit 13 Firebase Fish for 2018 repository. You should be using that to download it. So if I go there, I can get my project here, and then I'm just going to go on Android and set that up as a new project. So I'm just going to open this project up in Android Studio. And hopefully with this version you shouldn't have many problems to get up and running there. If you do, it shouldn't have any Firebase stuff in it, so if you do have problems, the most you should do is have to go into Android and sync the project for that. And it should compile and run relatively easily. Let me run this here. So I've run this on my tablet. Again, without any database stuff built into it, it should list, eventually it'll list the fish we catch here, but it doesn't. I can have a couple different activities here. I can add a fish and type in some information for a fish here. And hit save fish, but again, now without the database stuff, we're not going to see it saved. So it'll just go back here and it won't list the fish. And I should also be able to click on a fish and hit fish details or delete fish. I think now if I hit that, it'll just stop because I didn't click on a fish for either one of those. But again, you should be able to just download and at least have it built without any Firebase stuff. And then we're going to add some real-time database integration with Firebase Assistant here. So we're going to go in here and go under Tools and Firebase. We're going to scroll up and find real-time database integration. We're going to save that. We have to connect to the Firebase. This will set up the initial connection and create the JSON file for us. So I'll do that. So it'll ask us what project to create out there, new Firebase project or connect up to a different one. I'm just going to create a new Firebase project for this called Unit 3 Firebase Fish. And I'm going to just put 2018 because I have some old projects out there. And I'm going to connect to Firebase here. You might also want to bring up your Firebase console. So if you just Google Firebase console and bring that in, log in, you should see the projects listed here. Should be your Firebase projects. So once it's created, I should see that. Now this fish locator Firebase is an old project. That's why I tried to create a new name for it here. Okay, so let's go back. So the project was created. I'm going to add real-time support. That'll change my build.gradle file, add some things for it, or accept those changes. So let this build. Now it says you should configure your rules so that you can have public access to your database until we get authentication set up. So you have to do this in your Firebase console. So we should go to Firebase console and find that. So now in Firebase console, this new Firebase project is showing up at the bottom here. I'm going to go in there. Under database, I want to change the authentication rules for the database. And again, we're just gonna use this real-time database integration, not this new Cloud Firestore beta stuff. So just click on this. And again, right away it asks you two objects. You can start in lock mode or test mode. We want to start in test mode so that anyone can have access to the database. So we're going to set that up right away. I used to have to go and edit these, but now you can just set that up like this. So your rules should be set up already so that anyone can access it. It'll give you this warning. And initially, you won't probably have any data here. But we should see that change as we go. So, okay, so we've done this, configure the database rules for public access. Now we're going to go into our app and work on the Firebase data class. So there are a couple of classes here, just a quick overview. There's the main activity, and from that it can have an add fish activity or a detail activity that displays details on one fish. The detail activity uses this fish adapter, and no, the detailed adapter does. The main activity uses the fish adapter to display a list of fish. In the resources, there's a layout for the main activity and the two other activities, and there's also a fish row layout, which is used by the fish adapter to display the rows from the database. So that takes care of most of this. The fish class is just details about a single fish, information about that fish. There's actually more information here than we're using, so we're just pulling and displaying some of that information, I think, for now. And then the fish database class is where we're really going to do most of the work. And this is where we don't, we've got to add our database information in this. So this is where we're going to be editing stuff. So in the open method, we want to create an instance of the Firebase database, get a reference to fish data using the fish data tag. Both of these should be saved as class level variables, and we should return the database reference. So again, I'm going to uncomment out this open class here, and I'm going to get a reference to the Firebase database and my database reference. So since we've set this up for Firebase, we should be able to add these import statements up here. So on these things, I should be able to hit an Alt-Enter and create these references to my database. So. And in the instructions it said you probably want to have references to the Firebase database instance and then the reference to the fish data here. We really just need the reference to my fish data. So up here for our database reference, my fish database reference, we need that. And we're going to return that also here. We have to return this as this database reference object. So we want to set it up so we're declaring the database reference up here. When the database is open, this will be called, and we want to grab the database reference here and set that up. Okay, next we want to look at the create fish methods. There are two of them. We want to get a key from the database that'll get our list, our fish database object, create a new fish object based on that. So convert the results of the query to a fish object and write that object to a database reference. So ideas here is that we'll, in the main activity or somewhere else, we'll call these create fish methods here. One of them only has 3 attributes and one of them has more. I think we're only using this because our GUI is only set up to use this one right now, but we've got them both set up. There's some strings in, some code in here we can comment out, and we'll go over what that does. So again, we've declared our fish reference, so we grab that, and then we call get key from that. To get the key that we're going to use to add the fish here. I can get rid of this other key statement here, which just was a holder so we didn't generate errors. So the one that says replace this with the key from the database. Now we've done that. So this is going to get a key from the database. Now it's going to it's got to save the data in a different format, like a tag under there. So up here is our fish tag, and so we're creating a string called fish data, and that's kind of like maybe equivalent to a table name. It's not really, because this is a JSON non-SQL database, but a similar thing would be to, in this table, we're going to save a fish. So basically we're saying create a child under this tag, under this table, and first give me a unique key for that, and then once we have the key, we're going to create a new fish, store that key inside the fish, and then we're going to, in the database, we're going to create a child with that key with this database, with this value of the new fish. So it'll push all the fish attributes up there. And again, the same thing is done here. We just fill in more of the attributes for the location of the fish. Eventually, we're going to want, we could have GPS integration with this so that we have the latitude and longitude whenever we catch a fish. So when we're out there, we'll just automatically grab that information and put it in here. Okay. So we've changed the get fish. Similar with the delete fish, we want to retrieve the key from the database and remove this with this value here. So under delete fish, we use our database reference. We're passing in, we're given a fish, and we're told to delete this fish. Now, if you remember in the fish thing, there's all these things we're storing, but one of the things is the key, which is what it's stored in the database for. So we're going to grab the key from the fish and then use that to remove some values. So just use my fish reference, which is my database reference, and I'm going to say child key and then remove value. So it kind of mirrors the way we add. So here we did fish reference child key set value, and then this is fish database reference child key and then remove value to add a fish and remove a fish. So finally, we have a get all fish, which returns a list of fish here from the database. So I'm going to comment that out here. And we're going to have to import some of these values. But that'll add the necessary import statements for Firebase. And this is going to get a list of all the fish. So we're going to declare a list of fish type called fish list, just an array list. And then we're going to go through this data. We have a snapshot here. And so again, these are methods that are defined kind of with the database Firebase integration. So this is one of the things we can do. So we're given a snapshot of the fish here, and then we're just going to loop through that snapshot and get each child of that snapshot and save each child as a data element. And from that data element, we can get a fish. And so here's our fish class, this class up here we're referring. So it converts it's kind of automatically converting the JSON that's stored out there into a fish class, kind of like object relation to, but again, this is JSON, so it's actually converting this JSON string into a fish class for us. So we're given a fish, and then once we have that, we add the fish to our fish list, we return the fish list. We need this array list because we have an array adapter, and we're going to use it here. Okay, now we're going to go back to the main activity and do some changes there. So in main activity, we have to instantiate the Firebase database object and the data source. Again, similar, we have to do the stuff with the open methods. Each activity kind of has to handle Firebase separately. And then we're going to add a value event listener to this, which will let us see when the database changes. So let's go in here first. I'm going to uncomment this line. This is our database reference. I'm going to have to import something to get that to work up above. So I hit Alt-Enter for that. I should add this database reference here. Okay, and then in our onCreate, we want to set up our database change method, and so that's what's defined here. And let's go up, let's see what's happening with that. So again, I should be able to do a couple alt enters here to import these values. So to set up our database, we create a new Firebase database object. And remember that we just did that. That'll call this open and return a reference to our database. So we get a reference to our database here, and then we go and open that up and save that as our own MyFish database reference. So that ties this main activity with this first fish Firebase data activity we just finished up. But that's nice. It kind of separates a lot of the Firebase database stuff into its own class. Now, once we have this database listener or object set up, we're going to add a listener here. And anytime the data changes in Firebase, we're going to get this method called here. And so anytime the database changes, we're going to get all the fish and update our fish adapter. And what this will do is that if we have multiple people running our app, if a friend uses it, adds a fish, that fish will automatically get updated to Firebase and then automatically displayed on our list. So this will give kind of real time updates of all the fish data here, and this will be called anytime that data is updated. So again, what we'll do is we'll call get fish from our fish data source, and we just looked at that. This get gall fish method, which will return an array of fish. So here's our fish list, an array list. And then we have an array adapter here. This is an array adapter. It's been weeks since we've looked at these, but this is an array adapter to display things in a array adapter. If you look at our main activity, we have a list there, and that uses this fish row. And inside the fish row is just a 3 text views: species, weight, and date of the fish when it was caught. So that'll use that list view and tie it into this fish adapter. So that'll be all tied up. So our data should be displayed on our fish all the time. Okay. So we should be able to run this now. The last thing I forgot that we need to do is go into the add fish activity and do some updates there. Similar to the main activity, we've got to set up our Firebase data source there, and we've got to toggle some of these on. Control / will toggle some of these comments on. For now, there's also this location manager to get the location here. You can leave those commented out. We're not pulling the location here. But and so also here, when we create the fish, we want to use this first one here, which just uses the species, weight, and date caught. Eventually, if we're pulling the latitude and longitude from the GPS, we'll switch to this other one. But for now, we'll just do that. So make sure you uncomment those. So when you run this now, we should be able to add a fish. So we can add a fish here. And we aren't doing any checking on the format of this, so you can enter the dates any way you want or things like that. We're just storing everything as strings right now. Hit save fish, that'll save it. So you should see a list of the fish here that we have. So you should also be able to go into Firebase. Now we've created this tag, and remember this tag was like a table, and under that should be our fish, and each one of these are the keys. So here's the first fish, a walleye. I entered that, and here's the second fish, is this bass, 4-pound bass I entered. So again, we should see that created. And again, as we create this, we'll see. Let's minimize this. I should see the new one added right away when I add a new fish. So I go in here and do another one. Test 3, and I hit save. Again, I'll show that'll show up right away here, and it'll show test 3 showing up there. At this point, we should be able to delete the data fish or send more fish. So I should be able to go to it and see the fish details about that. Right now, the location's probably null because we're not saving that. I should also be able to click on a fish. Let's do this last walla and delete it, and should delete that. That should delete it from the Firebase database. Make sure, one other thing I think I forgot to mention is that if the delete's not working, make sure you go in main activity where the setup for the delete button is. This might be commented out, so make sure you are actually deleting the fish for that. And that should get you saving fish to the database and deleting them and viewing details on them.